In this next lesson, we're going to talk about color grading and the filmic tone mapper. So let's go down to color mapping and talk about this a little bit. Tone mapping, the idea is that you want to be able to take high dynamic range information and map it accurately to low dynamic range that can be output to most of our screens. And the idea is that the way film and our eyes work, we actually see a much broader range of luminance, and it's based on a logarithmic scale. And there's a standard that's been set up by the ACES, the Academy Color Encoding System, and Unreal has adopted it. And the end result is that you just get a much more close result to real life. So basically, you're getting a much better result for LDR, for low dynamic range images. The great thing is that as you start to turn up the different values now in terms of like exposure bias, it's just going to hold the information better. You'll still see the shape and you will get less blown out imagery and more physically accurate imagery. Okay, great. Let's jump into Unreal. All right, so we're in Unreal. We've got the color grading tab open. We can talk a little bit about white balance first. Now, the color temperature and tint that you can set for your white balance, if you've done cinematography or videography in the past, depending on if you're inside or outside, also depending on what reflected light's bouncing around in your scene, you're going to want to set your white balance. So Unreal has the ability to set your color temperature. If you wanted to stylistically apply this, you could maybe bring this up a little bit for a warmer temperature. So if we go to like 8,000, you can see it's getting a little bit warmer in the scene. In this case, I'm just going to set it back to 6,500 and we'll keep that off. Now let's talk about color grading a little bit in the global settings. Now we could adjust our saturation values. So most people understand that higher saturation will increase the color output, right? So we could globally increase that. We could also locally, specifically zone in on certain colors. So if we wanted to just bring the greens out, so we could almost zero out the reds and really dial in the greens. That way we've got a bit more of start to get more of a matrix look where everything's just a little bit green in the scene. All right, let's bring that all back to 1. We could also take the saturation values back to 0, where everything is black and white. That's a good transition to talking about contrast. And we also want to contrast between gamma and gain, because I think these are sometimes not well understood terms. So let me dial all 3 of these open and talk about what they can be used for, as well as just the definitions. So contrast specifies how light to dark something is in the scene. And if you push it all the way, it just goes all the way out to gray. If you push it too far, you start to crush the details in your scene. So what is it useful for? Well, it's useful for focusing in on details that have a small range of intensity, and it just brings out some of those details. If you just wanted to make some of the detail pop out in a lower dynamic range, that's where you can use contrast. As opposed to gamma, where gamma is a nonlinear relationship of light to dark. And the gamma mainly works on the midtones of an image. So you can bring the gamma up or down, and you can see it could potentially wash out your image. So basically, gamma will allow you to focus in on your midtone areas. How much dark or light, as well as how much color do you want to apply, but you can focus on the gamma specifically in a certain color area. Let's talk next about the gain. The gain will focus on the luminance specifically in the area of the highlights. So you can see as I pull the luminance up or down, it intensifies the highlights in the image. So if we had a lot of specular highlights, you'd see this even further. Just look at, if you focus in on the white areas, you can see the white areas get brighter. Okay. This is a global application. But you can specifically break down your image and focus on the highlights, the shadows, and the midtones separately as well. Finally, there's the whole ability to apply lookup tables. Let me just flip back to the documentation. Okay, so we're back in the documentation, and in a separate video, I'm going to go over the workflow for doing color grading using lookup tables. Now, the one issue that you might face is that it doesn't always accurately map to HDR with lookup tables. But other than that, it's a really great workflow for rapidly adopting certain looks. Okay, we've gone over the basics and some of the definitions that are connected to these terms, and we've also gone over how we could set up a completely desaturated image. We could focus in on certain colors. We could focus in on different luminance areas. And that's really a core part of making a really good looking image, is creating the look and feel as well as correcting it just to look its best. That'll wrap things up. We'll see you in the next video.